Okay, the topic I chose to discuss with you today or this afternoon is about what we all share: hiring, development, and retention. It's a continuing challenge. And as most of my peers have mentioned earlier, these things are also evolving, and we are evolving. Okay, so let me now set the tone. I know that Richard had introduced me. I'm representing Hinduja Global Solutions. Its shorter name is HGS Philippines. Okay, so those who are not yet quite familiar with my company, I need to say this all the time, but there was more identity crisis more than 7 years ago when I wasn't yet with this organization. So every time we are asked about what is Hinduja, who is Hinduja, we always have to say that we are the acquired C-Cube, or Customer Contact Center. It's a Lopez-owned company, okay? So when we talk about the BPO, or the contact center business or operations, at least 3 companies would claim the right to their own respective stories of being the first or the pioneer in this business. I think that we also have our own version of that, okay? So Lopez-owned Bayan Telecommunications, okay, was among the pioneers in this business. And so when Customer Contact Center was established, it was established not just to serve the customer contact or customer service requirements of Bayantel, but also to serve the other companies within Lopez Group. And you know Lopez Group, of course. Meralco, ABS-CBN, Sky Cable, Chronicle, okay, Benpress, name it. There are a lot of companies. Okay, so the Hinduja Group came to the Philippines, and in its vision to grow through mergers and acquisitions, they came across Customer Contact Center, and we entered into a joint venture. Okay, so yeah, that is partly about my company, but my topic today is not about HGS alone, and we deliberately chose this topic because when we are given that invitation to be part of this program today, we have such a universe, such a cyberspace, such a big ocean to choose topics, right? And my team and I, we decided to choose a topic that is common among all of us. Okay, so I'm here today not just to talk about HGS Philippines, though I would say I am the superwoman, champion, ambassadress of my brand and my company. I would also like to acknowledge, usually credits would go the last, but this time I want to do the first part. I am here with me 2 very important ladies from my team, from my organization. I have Aya Dupaya, Corporate HR Manager, focusing on processes and performance management. And of course, Annabel Martinez. She's my Director for Recruitment and Organization Development. Okay, so we chose this topic, the continuing challenge, hiring, development, and retention, because it cuts across all our industries that we represent this afternoon. Okay, it cuts across industrial sectors, business verticals, and all companies, whether small or medium scale, there is HR, and there are those challenges that we have. So what I'm going to share with you are not what I will call best practices of our organization, because actually best practice is a misnomer. There is no such thing as a best practice, because tomorrow the best practice is no longer relevant. There has to be innovation. It has to be changed because of the continuously evolving demands of our customers. And of course, we chose to present to you things that are combinations of facts, figures, data, but I wouldn't attempt to present to you data analytics. Maybe you're better than me on that. But I would say that it's a core requirement also in HR management and development. But what we will share with you are mostly layman truths, okay? A lot of truths which maybe are trends and challenges, or maybe they are realities, as we call them. So we always do our SWOT, okay? Our SWOT analysis. And when we do evaluate our environment, there are realities there that may be seen differently by different HR leaders or practitioners, okay? Because we come from different industries, there are different dynamics, and also we have varying perspectives because sometimes these truths or realities, we turn blind eyes on them or to them. So I would call them inconvenient truths, actually. There's are things that come from our conscience. We know that they are true, but we are not honest most of the time to face them and call them the truths, especially when we're faced with challenges facing clients, facing our operations people, facing our top management, etc. Okay? So, yes. So, let me present this first to you. What are the key business challenges faced by organizations right now? This is from Deloitte. Okay? Driving business growth, dealing with increased competition, achieving better operational efficiency, dealing with cost pressures, expansion into new markets, fostering and sustaining innovation. These are things that we've heard from all the speakers earlier today. What keeps us awake? Okay? And in the words of Cecile, I think it was Cecile Batalha earlier, she asked it differently. How or what things make us lose our sleep, right? So what keeps us awake? Hiring, retention, and development. Hiring, it used to be a very typical, very traditional core function in HR. Yeah, so everybody hires. The sad thing is that those who are given the power to hire are actually not even considered as powerful in the organizations, right? So a lot of times, okay, we hire the wrong people, actually. 37% of the 1,300 surveyed HR and business leaders in 59 countries admit that their HR and talent programs require significant or radical improvements. So we know this, we say this, but what are we doing about it, right? 52% of businesses consider finding, training, and developing hires their top challenge. This is a story of the past. This is actually history. So a lot of companies who have really improved, evolved, and grown to where they are now have addressed those challenges. Those who keep on saying that this job is difficult, this job is thankless, you know, and this job is so hard and it's very stressful, they haven't moved. They remained where they are, or they have folded up, or even are now lost in space. Okay, so there's this caricature here that I want to share with you. You may have seen this. Okay, we're looking for someone with the wisdom of a 50-year-old, the experience of a 40-year-old, the drive of a 30-year-old, and the pay scale of a 20-year-old. Okay? Yeah, so, yeah, I hear those laughs. Yes. Okay. Most of the time, we, the hiring and HR experts that we call ourselves, when we put together the qualifications, the criteria, the standards for a certain position or role, we want the best put together, but they don't actually jibe, right? For example, if you want somebody who's really a seasoned HR practitioner or a leader, right? You want somebody who's at least 40 years old. Sometimes you don't put that because in the global environment, it's not really a good practice to put age, right? But how do we do that? We say we require at least 20 years of experience, preferably spent on a senior leadership role, minimum of 10 years. So what age are we looking for? Okay? And then later on, you want that person, after all the screening, the last part, which is usually after background check, the pre-employment medical exam. You want that person perfectly healthy. Okay? You junk the person because he has high blood pressure or has a high blood sugar. Where can you find in the world somebody who's 45 or 50 who's in perfect health, right? Especially in the BPO. Okay? Yeah. And I can say that, okay? So, next, Aya. Okay. So, I think the screen does not really present it very clearly, but however, the three columns present our trends and challenges in hiring, and then we labeled some of our phenomenon or phenomena realities, and then we mention here some interventions, okay? So, part of our trends and challenges in hiring, 77% of US businesses plan to hire in 2014. That's huge, right? Okay, and that is really an opportunity for us, especially in our world, KPO, BPO, ITS enabled businesses, what you may call it, okay? Because we know that those businesses, when they grow, the opportunities come, okay, come to us. Because it's really expensive to operate the businesses onshore, right? Okay, expensive, and also, and I always say this to most people, wouldn't like jobs with the 3Ds, okay? 3D. What's difficult, what's dangerous, and what's dirty, they don't want it. And what's good about us, Filipinos, is that, yeah, we want anything decent, right? Anything where we can show our potentials, our talents, and remain whole persons with our integrity, with our values, etc. Okay, 41% of companies surveyed say that a bad hire costs them at least $25,000. Okay? So, but how do we know, and when do we know usually that we have hired the wrong person? Not on day one, day two? Yeah, for support functions, usually. Because for customer service associates, for example, we have metrics daily. We have toll gates in training, checkpoints, and we have numbers to show and indicate bad performance. But for support functions, for example, for the roles that we do, HR leader, director, VP, etc., associate vice president, manager, it takes some time before we know it that this person is a bad hire. Okay? We will just know it when we start receiving subpoenas because due process was not observed. Okay? When we start receiving complaints from the client that your HR business partner is not truly partnering with operations because HR leader is refusing the profile of a particular job, okay? And the truth is that that person may not just be creative or may not just be supported by his peers, okay? So, usually wrong hire is realized medium term, but the impact of the organization is long term, okay? Remember guys, organizations are names. Name it, big names, small, medium names, but what really makes it? The people, right, that comprise it. Okay, 71% overall talent scarcity. That's a trend to deal with. 9 of 10 found attracting talent a challenge. Yeah, it's very common. Value of different hiring methods. Interviews, only 14% accuracy, guys. Many people are too hypocrites, okay? Hypocrite. They would say, I hire for attitude, okay? Hire for attitude. How do you really do that, right? What questions do you ask? Yeah. And most of the time when I do random checks with my team, I will look at the profiles of people who they rejected at the end of the day. And I would ask them, why did you not accept this person? The profile seems good, the test scores are high, communication skills is okay, according to your notes, but why did you junk this candidate? And my team members would say, because when we asked him, he said that he was terminated from his previous employment because of a mishandling of a call. And then I said, well, it's easier for you now. You don't need to have a background check, right? Isn't that person honest? So, do you want an honest person? And then I say, call him again. Okay, try to chase him. Otherwise, he will go to other call centers. And because of his lesson in dealing with you, he may lie in that other call center, and they may accept him. And we lose a very good potential candidate, right? Okay, another experience is that I asked them also why they rejected a certain candidate. They said, he seems to be very aggressive. All of the ideas that they're talking about in a panel interview, he always contradicted and proved his point, wanted to be heard. And I said, then nobody will replace us in the future, guys. If you want candidates who will always say yes to you, right? Okay. So, 14% interview accuracy, abilities plus personality assessment, reference checks, interviewing produces, altogether produce 54% accuracy, personal attributes, job benchmarking, etc., 75% accuracy. What I'm saying, guys, is that it depends on what we're looking for. So we may not have the same set of tests that we use or questions in the interview session or panel interviews, what you may call it, call simulation, role play, but there has to be a more realistic way of measuring or assessing what we're looking for. And do not attempt to measure what is not measurable on the day of the interview. For example, commitment. Okay? Commitment, they usually say, if I offer you a job, will you stay with me for a year? And if he says yes, yes, commitment, excellent, okay? But there's somebody else, for example, a US registered nurse. We're hiring a lot of US RNs. And they would say, actually, I am planning to take the board in 6 months' time. Will you accept me if I plan for that? And we do have a program in helping them also achieve that certification or the license. So what's important is an open communication right from the start, right? Okay, so realities. Candidates have greater demands and more income options nowadays. Okay, gone were the days when companies are so proud to say, okay, those people need jobs. So we stay here, they will come to us, okay? Yeah, nowadays, guys, companies need people. And we chase after our target talents, okay? Heightening war for talent. Okay, in the BPO, I'd like to correct some of the misnomers here that we all compete with one another in terms of our businesses. No, there's a huge, huge market, not only in the US, but globally. So that means that my client is different from yours, so we don't go head-on collision. But what our competition is all about is about the people that we need. We chase after them. We chase them. We go after them. And that is why we have also thwarted and distorted pay scales because of that, okay? And I would like to say, yeah, for your consolation, guys, that HR has become a very well-paying job. True. Okay. So, least cost propositions is the preferred mode. Yeah, that's true, because even in the outsourcing business and even in any business, cost of operation should be low. And we're not saying cheap, okay? Should be kept low, but with the outcomes that are excellent, right? So least cost, in other words, it's cost effective. So whoever proposes the most cost effective measures or solutions to a business partner wins it, okay? So I always educate my team also in the company, guys, don't feel sad if this client wants to pay XX pesos. Okay, we just have to present a solution that these XX pesos can afford this XX profile, and how do we now bridge that gap? So build the talent pool or build some interventions so that these people who will appreciate this XX peso will be at this XX profile in time, right? Don't promise the clients plug and play, because if you promise them plug and play, we will not get those candidates, okay? So interview and test, not adequate to assess people and predict performance and retention, of course. Increased need for highly qualified people with varying profile. So a person or a candidate who will work best in a financial service environment is not the same profile in a healthcare environment, okay? So we have to know our business. Even as HR, we are usually called support group. And I hate that, because I will call myself a strategic business partner and a fellow decision maker at that, okay? So we have to determine that. Operations cannot promise that to our clients. Client services cannot promise that to our clients. We have to be in there, part of the team, okay? So, interventions, use technology for recruiting and screening. You know what this means. Employees as brand ambassador, that's very important. The promos, the ads, you know, what we post on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever social media channels are only helping. But the best ambassadors are our people who can tell the world their stories about how you're treating them, okay? Not about how you are paid, but how you are treated as a person or as an employee. Strategic innovations in sourcing, okay? So now, we don't wait for people to come to us. That will not be enough. We will not meet our numbers. So we go out there, outside Metro Manila, okay, in the provinces. There are a lot of talents there, guys, who are just waiting to be invited for job opportunities. Okay. Build, breed, and bridge initiatives. Yeah, we're very active in this. Okay, so that means that we will have to present solutions to our operations partners and our clients so that they appreciate that the talent that we want right now is not yet there. But given the time and the opportunity, we can build it for them. Okay, strike a good balance between specialists and generalists. So let's say, for example, HR roles. Okay, we get people, right, fresh graduates from the universities, HR assistant. Isn't that true, right? Okay, and then you confine them in recruitment. And then they become specialists. Okay, they stay with the company for long. They dedicate themselves. But why is it that in the future or in the long term, when the company looks for a leader, that person who was trained there and who stayed, who dedicated himself, did not get that post? Because he or she remained a specialist. Okay? Too deep, but the leader should know all, right? And sometimes, I know, most of you know this, you can get a job as an HR manager if you know bits and pieces of everything, right? Okay? And you can do a very good job in the interview. Diba, guys? Okay. So, let's go. Next slide. Okay, next, development. Okay? Again, we have these three columns, our trends and challenges. 41% of employees with no training plan to leave in a year. That's true. Yeah, we see this in the BPO. We don't see much of this maybe in manufacturing or banking or in the more traditional businesses, but in BPO where the pace is very fast and dynamic, yeah, if you don't present a plan to an employee, they leave, okay? Shortages of executive level leadership, 56%. Hurdles in training, there's financial strain, skills atrophy, management support, usefulness of training metrics. Okay, so those are self-explanatory, however. Maybe in more detail, I would say that the training metrics that we establish, are they real? Okay? Are the checkpoints realistic enough and attainable to measure that a person is really growing while you're training them? So that's a food for thought. And the realities that we have to deal with, rise in the need to go beyond traditional technical and function programs. Rising need in cultural sensitivity training, okay? Why is this a need, guys? We have become very global, okay? And if we say our people don't work together, they don't understand each other because they're of different cultures, then maybe we owe them a lot in terms of cultural sensitivity training. Okay, for example, even on the phone, our customer service associates, foundation training is not only about communicating in English, knowing the American culture and time zones and all that. They have to practice, listen to calls, know what a bad call is and what a good call is, because they have to be attuned to the culture of their customers, okay? And we're not attempting here something impossible. We don't say that through the training, our goal is to Americanize, okay, the tongue of our Filipino associates. No, we simply neutralize so that they can better be understood, okay? So, for example, culture, tip of the iceberg, idiomatic expressions, okay? Gone were the days when our agents would say, when a customer says, you know, I'm a bit under the weather, and yeah, with utmost courtesy, our associate would always respond, so what's the weather up there, sir? Right? Okay? Or when when a customer says, you sold me a lemon. No, we don't sell lemons, sir. Right? Okay? Gone were those days because we are so good in doing our training function, right? So we get people from the US or we go to the US so that we become attuned to what we're going to teach. Because we cannot teach through slides or through Google, right? We teach best when we talk about experience. Okay, so training conducted, or training and development treated as cost, not as an investment. Of course, we share that sentiment, guys, right? So, what do we do when we are treated by our leaders like this? Your HR, what do you understand? So why are you justifying this training program, right? We should talk the language of our business leaders. Okay, we talk about metrics, about data. Okay, when you say, I want to uplift the morale of our people, how do you measure morale? What is that, right? We have measures like ESAT, ICSAT, etc. Okay, training as a filter more than an enabler. I think this happens in most companies. Yeah, we hire people, we call them high potentials, we call them highly trainable. However, in every day of the training program, a lot of people fall out because they're not meeting the metrics. So it's our pain point in HR. We justify this to operations and to our clients that keeping these people who almost make it will be actually less expensive than hiring a replacement, right? So we have to articulate. As HR leaders, we have to articulate using the terminologies of our business so that they better understand. Because if we don't speak the same language, they will always say, no, 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 Vida, you don't understand what you're saying. And it becomes painful for us because it's our passion, it's our goal, it's our value, and we are not listened to, right? Okay. So training is a temporary motivator. Okay, this is a reality, guys. What do I mean when I say this? Training is a temporary motivator. Some people, they really stay in our companies while they are being trained. They are attaining, gathering, getting all that they can. Every opportunity to learn, okay? And generate experience. However, that's only temporary because those people, if your company or our company is not growing that much, where can they go? They will not remain where they are. So let's accept the reality that well-trained people are usually targets for poaching. And that should not be a sad thing for us. Okay, the way we have established our mindset, we have evolved our mindset in the organization. What I always tell our leaders is that whenever they send somebody to me for counseling, because this person has an offer from company A, and usually I will talk to the person and ask the person, okay, I'll give you a set of metrics or criteria. It's a matrix that I personally used in the past, okay? Enumerate the things that are important to you, like proximity of residence, you know, proximity to the school of your children, pay, benefits, medical coverage, etc. And then later on, you measure also the intangible things, like is this position empowered? Will you have a team or is it a one-man team? Some companies call their leaders HR manager and ask, what is that person managing actually? He does not even have a team, right? Just himself. That still exists in old, you know, old school kind of management. Okay, so whenever I guide somebody who's leaving, I will always tell him, okay, I talk to him on a Friday or Thursday, and I would say, okay, over the weekend, talk about this with your family, with your better half, with friends, significant people to you, and gather their opinion. Okay, on Monday or Tuesday, come back to me, okay? I will respect your decision. And if you have great conviction for your decision, I will support you and make our company understand your move, right? Because we cannot do this, guys, like talk to people and say, no, you stay. You cannot leave, right? They're not dogs. I mean, these are adults, very brilliant adults who have options in life, right? So I think that we should be respectful of what they have and guide them through it, okay? And what Hans was talking earlier about Recon and XCon, we have that also, Balik HGS program. And a lot of people, yeah, in my subconscious actually, whenever they're leaving, in my mind, I would always say, yeah, if you get good experience from other companies and you come back, you will actually become a better person. Because most of our people, I'm very proud to say, we have a very good retention rate. Some have 15 years in service. Yeah, from the original Lopez company. The highest tenure we have is 22 years of service. But I also pity them sometimes because they lack the experience to see what's outside the company. Okay? And at times when our leaders are all coming from within and we promote them because we want to be true to our declaration and promise of promoting people, sometimes they don't fit. They don't perform because they lack that experience from the outside. Okay, so I think, yeah, temporary motivator. Trained employees become targets for poaching, that's true. And training as a hobby and band-aid solution. Okay, some companies do training just for the sake of training. Okay, it's good to have it, right? It's good to put on the, you know, how many people have you trained, etc. And these people, in turn, put those training programs in their resumes. Yes, they're so proud about it. But what is the real measure of effectiveness of training? Okay, so these are our interventions. Invest in the future talent pool. Okay, so for example, if we have requirements for US registered nurses, and we usually encounter, especially in the provinces, a lot of fresh nursing graduates or those who have taken the Philippine license, we still offer them their opportunities. And then later on, we help them convert to PHRN to USRN. Okay? And that is only one way of building our pool. Okay? There are many other ways of building that pool. Create our own pool, acknowledgement of the need to shift management and leadership style, catering to 4 generations. Yeah, so in this world, we now have different ages. When you look at our population of employees, we have a lot of generations being represented. So leaders are compelled to deal with all those in a balanced way, okay? So gone were the days when we say, we who are more aged than the others, I, for example, would usually hear my leaders in the past telling me, you know what, you're still very young. You're a kid. I have earned my way here, up here, in a very difficult way. So, in Tagalog, okay, I'll say it in Filipino. Papunta ka pa lang, pabalik na ako. Something like that, okay? So, no, that doesn't work anymore. We should respect the young. Actually, when composing management teams or leadership teams nowadays, it's good to have young people there. Yeah, for fresher ideas, for more aggressiveness. They're risk takers, right? But they should be guided well. We know that. Okay, so intervention for high potential employees. Yeah, we all know that we should spot our high potential employees, but we're doing it the wrong way most of the time. We always send to training those who have excellent performance. But high performers are not usually high potentials, right? Yeah, the best agent that we have, for example, may not be the team lead that I want because there's a different set of skills that we need for leadership. So we should not be mistaken, okay? Increase focus on individualized development. Yeah, we say we customize our training programs, but do we really spend on customizing? Okay, I know that, yeah, we're guilty on this actually, that it's easier to do the package type of training programs. But if we really look at individual styles, individual learning styles, then we should have better ways of assessing the needs of our employees and trainees. Increased support from the government, yeah, that should be there. Blended training modalities, so gone were the days when we just do classroom training. Now we have CBT, okay, but guys, CBT does not work well if it's the only style that we're going to use, okay? So we say blended modalities because our trainees, our employees should be given the chance to deal with other people, okay? When they do CBT all the time, they will not be developed in their people skills. And we will later on complain about how they're not dealing with their peers, right? So even in training, let's provide that opportunity for them. And of course, more strategic and comprehensive TNA, okay? So TNA is our jargon for trainers, but HR leaders should know this. Training needs assessment, okay? Every good program starts with a good TNA. Because what is the problem we are solving? The TNA should point us to that, okay? So every trainer who presents to me a module or a set of courses, I always ask, how did you do your TNA, darling? Okay, and if that person cannot explain to me, I would send her back to the floor, to the workplace, because we have to gather those real inputs before we can determine what training is necessary. Okay, so retention, very good word to hear, okay? So yeah, this is another caricature. I will not read it. I'll ask you to read it from your place. So what do we do to retain people? We do a lot of, I would say, aesthetics, right? Give them a good facilities or restroom. Give them the, sleeping quarters, etc. Good pantry, posh pantry, elegant pantry. But will they stay long? Okay. Retention should hit the core of people. And at the latter part of my deck, there's a simple formula that we will share with you. Okay, so retention. Specific challenges to retention. Employees expect faster career progression. Okay, in the old days, one who wants to become a manager right away is despised, right? He's so ambitious. That guy is so wrongly ambitious, right? What does he have to offer? He wants to be a manager, right? But nowadays, yeah, that's achievable. I have seen a lot of young leaders, and they're good. Yeah. But they should be guided on the side of, values, because they're not mature as we are. But even the old ones are not yet mature as well, right? So there's a challenge there. Okay, so younger employees are not expecting to stay more than 3 years. Yeah, this is the trend. Leaders struggle to manage across generation. Highly commoditized and competitive labor market. General industry turnover rate, 3.2% from the Bureau of Labor and Employment Statistics, Q4. In BPO, it's 60 to 80% annualized. Can you just imagine, guys? But if you're a BPO player and you're doing 60% annualized, you're still good, right? You're still good. Yeah, others are doing triple digit, or about 80, 90% annualized. And I will not be embarrassed to say, yeah, we have programs where we are challenged with retention, okay? And, of course, retention, after this slide, we'll talk more about it, given more time. Okay, an individual's financial situation is the most commonly cited stress indicator, okay? So, there are a lot of surveys that say salary or compensation is not actually the primary factor that makes people leave or stay, okay? In a culture like ours, guys, we have to face this truth also. Let's be more honest, okay? When I was younger, when I was age 21, 22, until about 28, okay, I had 22 to 28, I had about 4 companies. So look at my tenure, okay, short stints. And then alongside, I did part-time teaching during the night, okay? So a lot of people, when they interviewed me for job opportunities like 10 years ago, they would always say, look at my earlier years in my resume. And they would say, when you were young, you moved a lot, right? And I said, yes, and I'm not ashamed of it. Every time I moved, I've doubled my salary, right? And because I'm a breadwinner, I needed that money. I have a sick mother, okay? I'm very poor. I have a lot of cousins who are also poor in the province. I support a lot of people. So every opportunity to double that salary, I took it. And I'm not ashamed of it. However, when I reached the age of 30 and I was given an AVP role, HR leader in the agribusiness, I spent 10 years there. So I would always guide my interviewer. But sir, please, can you look at my record? When I was in agribusiness, I spent 10 years. Because there I found more than adequate income, okay? Very good support from the owners, very good team. It was a unionized company, but I was respected and all that. What is 10 years? I mean, it's almost 1/4 of my life when I reach 40, right? Okay, so when I went to BPO after agribusiness, a lot of headhunters told me, Vida, you're really very impressive. You have a very good profile. However, our clients require somebody from the BPO, okay? So I said, I really want to enter this, industry. I found it really challenging. And I said, how can I? Okay, so what I did, I took a consulting job, a small project, in a BPO company where they had a lot of mess in job evaluation, etc. Okay, and when I started interviewing people, everything's a mess. Leadership, engagement, etc. I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, I learned a lot from them. Yeah. So when I started presenting myself, I have a consulting project, and there's a BPO company that said to the headhunter, okay, I want an HR leader who's not coming from the BPO. So I became the top contender among the candidates, okay? And then the reason was very good. They said that the company became myopic, all the leaders came from the agents level, and they are looking for somebody who's not from the BPO because they want a fresh outlook, fresh idea, and they want somebody who's mature. Not really old, right? Mature. Okay, so, yeah. So, how do we now relate this to the reality, okay? Employees expect faster career progression. Okay, so after my consulting job, I took a real BPO job, full-time, learned everything there, 1 year, okay, and my other team members are here. 1 year there was such like a 1/4 of my life. Yeah, with all the problems and challenges that I met. And then my next BPO, which is now my company, I'm almost 8 years here. So who can say that I don't have that potential to commit and stay, right? Okay, so retention has evolved, guys. What I'm saying also is that retention is not only measured when people stay in one company for the rest of their lives. Retention can be intermittent. Okay, you belong to one industry, okay, make your contributions there, make significant contribution to that sector. Because retention is subjective. For example, I have people who are 15 years in service, 20 years in service, but they're no longer growing. They're just waiting for their retirement benefits. So is that the retention that we want, right? And the sad part of it also is that better performers, guys, are the ones who are leaving. Why? They are poached. Yeah, that's one. Okay, number two, they are in a hurry to grow or eager to grow. They may be patiently waiting, but if the company is not growing, how can we have vacant positions up there, right? Okay, so let's look at the interventions. Value individuality, respect diversity. Okay, that's one of our good practices in HGS. Monitor engagement through exit and stay interviews, open blogs and other communication fora. Offer comprehensive benefits that address special needs. So in our company, we have what we call flexible benefits program. We call it choices. Okay, yeah. So equip employees with tools and knowledge to help them make smarter financial decisions, promotion of empowerment, and provide SCARF. Okay, next slide. Okay, the SCARF. Okay, this is our formula for retention. It's very simple, guys. Okay, SCARF is status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, fairness. Okay? These can make people happy or experience pain if we don't address these things in the right way. Okay, so if they feel that their status is being addressed, do they feel secure in the company? Are they certain about where the company is growing? There's no threat about losing jobs immediately. Is there autonomy as well? Is there relatedness? Is the company something that they can call their second home or family? Is there fairness in the implementation of policies, the code of conduct? Is the team lead also being penalized for similar offenses that his agents commit? Okay, so I think those are the bottom lines. Okay, so I think, guys, yeah, this is the time to end my presentation. And of course, as HR leaders, as Heidi has mentioned earlier, we must evolve, we must reinvent ourselves. And the change that we can do to the world is huge, but we must start the change within ourselves. Okay? So thank you very much for listening.